What's going on, everybody? Pleasure to be back again. We're going to talk a little bit about the Seahawks today. I know we did our UFC video that is being uploaded today, but we're going with a couple uploads today just because there's been a lot that's going on in the Seahawks world. Of course, we've talked about the coaching that has happened, and now we're going to kind of move on from the coaching, and we're going to talk about some personnel for a little bit and just kind of get something out and something short there for just a couple things that have been going on. So to kick things off, to get right on into it, now, we know that Ryan Grubb is solidified as the offensive coordinator, but going into the personnel, we're looking at who's going to be on this team, who are the Seahawks going to ride with, and the Seahawks had 2 days after the Super Bowl to address the Geno Smith situation. Are they going to pay him the $12 million guaranteed? Are they going to let him walk? What was going to be the gist of what they did with Geno? And now that was primarily going to be based on what is going on with the draft. However, I think with the Seahawks' position in the draft, they're not going to be looking for quarterback. So that gives the opportunity for Geno Smith to really step up and do what he did in 2022. And so what Geno is able to do when he has solid protection is no question. I think that is why the Seahawks ultimately decided to pay Geno his $12 million and keep him on the staff, keep him as part of the roster, and commit to the Geno Smith contract that they had drawn up with him. Again, to have a quarterback that is consistent like Geno Smith has been, and he's not, last season he wasn't terrible. He just had bad protection, and the offensive line had a struggle all year. Now, if you give Geno Smith the protection, we've seen the consistency at what he can play. There are times where he does make a silly decision, or he kind of just doesn't really know to get rid of the football quick enough. Those are things that can be addressed when you do have a little bit more coverage and a little bit more time to think and focus. But this, of course, just brought in the conversation of how are the Seahawks going to protect Geno? Are you going to bring in some interior line guys? Are you going to look for them in the draft? The Seahawks have to kind of think about what they're going to do at pick number 16. Are they going to trade it back and get a couple second-round picks for that first-round pick and maybe go interior linemen to kind of build that up? And a lot of speculations have gone to the scenario, the what-if scenario, not saying that this is something that should happen, but this is just a way of looking at the Seahawks organization on how they can build protection around Geno, and it all starts with trading a star player. And now a lot of people in Seattle, they've been hearing the theory of trading DK Metcalf for a few picks. Again, the Seahawks paid him his guaranteed money, so teams are probably a little bit more likely to trade him for a higher pick. And now that ultimately just comes down to how you want to restructure this roster. It's a crazy scenario. It's a crazy situation to think that we finally got our guy, our go-to wide receiver. You get Ryan Grubb, and then the first theory that pops out is, how are we going to trade DK to leverage the draft? Now, I don't think that is going to be the case. I believe that the Seahawks do have a game plan going into the draft, and I don't imagine them going quarterback. If Michael Penix is on the board when the Seahawks go up to draft at number 16, I also wouldn't be surprised if they picked him. However, I think that their primary focus is going to be all offensive line and rebuild that. And I believe that with the offensive line coming in, you're going to be cutting a big piece of your safety salary out by dropping Jamal Adams. So I expect Jamal Adams to be released from the Seahawks as well in order to save around $20 million on that contract. So look for that to happen as well. And then look for maybe bringing in more linemen with that budget going up. I just think that they want to have the physical, strong offensive line that Detroit has, or any of those great offensive lines that allow quarterbacks to take some time in the pocket and have that ability to not be constantly under pressure, especially when you're playing against the Rams, especially when you're playing against the 49ers. And I mean, I'm not going to throw the Cardinals in there just because they don't really have anybody that is significant enough to do pass rush. But moving on from that, I expect Jamal Adams to be released to save up a little bit of a budget and for the Seahawks to put in a lot more into the offensive line. And that's going to kind of that's going to kind of focus more along the lines of how are they going to pay these wide receivers and these players on offense. And now you're also looking at other contracts on that offense that's kind of weighing them down a little bit in terms of who's your tight end, who's your, who are your star players that you are paying this amount on. And it's going to be really interesting to see. I really do hope that they bring Bobby Wagner back. I don't expect it to happen, but I do think that he is going to I believe that he is going to try to stay in Seattle. There's no doubt about it. Why wouldn't he want to stay here and play another year and potentially retire after that? Or maybe even, who knows, maybe even 2 years, but just cut his time down. I mean, Bobby Wagner spent majority of his time on the field, and it was his year 12. So 180 tackles for him this year is absolutely nuts. Super excited to see what's going on as we kind of creep up more into free agency, and we're going to creep into the draft. I can't wait to see what John Schneider and Mike McDonald decide to do in that draft. I think that either way, Seahawks fans are going to be pleased, and Seahawks fans are going to be excited to be back in I almost called it CenturyLink, but I mean, guess going back into Lumen Field and really bringing that home field back. I think that is something that is going to be really, really focused on this year is bringing the crowd back, bringing in players that people want to come and see, as well as just having that new environment, the new structure to it. So with that being said, that's my 2 cents on the Seahawks today. $1 million Geno. We'll see what happens with his contract come March, because that's going to be when they owe him another $10 million. With that being said, you guys, I'm going to get ready because UFC has got a big event tonight, so I'm just going to take some time. I already hit the gym, so I'm just going to bust out a couple more miles here, and then I'm going to wrap it on up. I'm going to just enjoy some time with some friends. Let's crush some beers. Let's enjoy these fights. Let's enjoy this offseason as Seahawks fans. We've earned a good offseason. Let's enjoy it. I love you guys. I'll catch you guys tomorrow on the Sunday Scaries. We will be live at 10:30 a.m. That is the new start time for the Sunday Scaries, as we are now into the off season, and we will go ahead and recap the Super Bowl and just go over the UFC fights from tonight. Love you guys. See you on the next one. Adios.